A market crash is coming. Probably not next week, maybe not even this year, but stay in the market long enough and you will get hit by one. And when it does, it'll wipe out 30, 40, even 50% of the average investor's portfolio, more if you're badly positioned. But it's not the crash itself that determines how you fare in a market crash, it's what you do before and during the crash. 3 simple steps that could turn a market crash from a threat into an opportunity. The problem is that most investors do the exact opposite of these 3 steps, and when the big one hits, that could really cost you. In this video, I'll show you exactly how to prepare for a market crash and what to do during one. I'll also show you what the pros do when the market is in free fall and how you can actually come out of the next crash a lot richer than you went in. Investors often think of market crashes as these super rare, catastrophic events that can wipe out their entire portfolio, but market crashes are actually not that rare at all. They're a normal part of healthy markets. Just look at this chart showing all the bear markets of the last 100 years or so. Since 1928, the S&P 500 has lived through 27 bear markets. That's roughly one every 3 to 4 years. Not exactly rare. The average bear market lasts about 9 to 10 months from peak to bottom, and the average drop from peak to trough is about 33%, although some have been higher. During the dot-com crash of the early 2000s, for instance, the S&P 500 dropped 49% from peak to trough, and the Nasdaq even dropped 78%, which shows that it also matters where you invest. Not every investor is hit equally, but every market crash and subsequent bear market was eventually followed by a new all-time high. Every single one. Let that sink in for a moment. Every bear market in the history of the US stock market has been followed by a new all-time high. That's not a coincidence, that's how markets work. Drops are temporary, growth is permanent, at least it has been for nearly 100 years. So if crashes are so normal, why do they feel so devastating? 3 reasons. 1, crashes happen fast, recoveries are slow. The drop is dramatic and visible, the recovery is boring and happens in fits and starts. It's not news, it doesn't grab the attention like a crash does. It's like a World War II movie that opens with the attack on Pearl Harbor and then spends the next 2 hours showing men working at a shipyard building new battleships to replace the one destroyed in the attack. It's a vital part of the war effort to be sure, but hardly as dramatic as Japanese Zeros destroying the Arizona. 2, when you're in the middle of a market crash, every news outlet is screaming that this time it's really different. This time the market is really broken. This time it might not recover. But know that they've said the exact same thing about the 27 other market crashes, and they've been wrong 27 times. It's perfectly understandable, of course. No news outlet is going to say it's just another crash and markets will recover within 3 years. It would be seen as tone deaf at best and probably downright insensitive at worst. And 3, a 30% drop on a portfolio you spent 10 years building feels like 10 years of work disappearing in a few months. The pain isn't connected to the math, it's connected to the time and effort you put into building that account. In reality, your portfolio likely increased more than the historical average during the boom years before it, but you won't hear anyone say in a bull market that they should be making less. The outsized returns of a bull market feel justified somehow. That's you making smart choices. A crash, in contrast, feels like the market, the world, the universe is punishing you for no reason at all. In short, crashes feel terrifying not because they're rare, but because they punch you in the gut emotionally. And that's exactly why most investors do the wrong thing during a crash. Which brings us to step number 1. The first step happens before the crash even arrives. It's how you prepare for a crash. I'm not talking about battening down the hatches, pulling your money out of the market preemptively and sticking it under your mattress. That's about the worst thing you could do. No, it's about acknowledging that a crash will eventually happen and positioning your portfolio to minimize unnecessary risk exposure and gain from the crash when it comes. What you do in this step also determines whether you'll be able to follow steps 2 and 3 or whether you'll panic sell at the bottom like everyone else. There are 3 things you have to do in the prep phase. 1. Build an emergency buffer. Think 3 to 6 months of living expenses sitting in cash. Not in your investment account, not in stocks, in cash, or something else extremely liquid that acts like cash. More on that in a moment. Most people who panic sell during a crash aren't necessarily selling because they're panicking and want out, although that happens too, of course. Most are selling during the subsequent downturn because they have to. They lost their job, or their hours were cut back, or their side hustle is no longer making money because everyone's cutting back on everything. Money is tight, and the only money they can access is the money in their brokerage account, which is now down 40%. So they sell at the worst possible moment, lock in the loss, and never recover. An emergency fund prevents that. It's the single most important piece of crash protection most people don't think of as crash protection. Now, where should you keep your emergency fund? You have several good options and a few terrible ones. Let's start with the terrible ones. Don't keep it in a checking account or a near 0% savings account. Don't keep it in a safety deposit box or a vault or anywhere else in the house for that matter. If you do any of this, inflation will eat away at your money like termites eating through wood. The most important thing about this money, this emergency buffer, is not that it's literally cash in your hand or in a bank account. It's that it's liquid. In other words, quickly accessible. And you have several options where your money is extremely liquid while still getting enough return to outpace inflation. One simple option is the Vanguard Cash Plus account. It's FDIC insured just like money in the bank and pays a competitive yield that's currently around 3.3%. Enough to beat inflation, but obviously not as good as the historical average return of the stock market. But here's the thing, when the markets tank, your Cash Plus account won't. If you're at Fidelity, they automatically sweep your uninvested cash into SPACs, which is their government money market fund. SPACs is not FDI insured, but it's about as safe as cash gets because it mostly holds various forms of government debt. If you live in a high tax state like California and New York, another smart option would be to park your money in a short-term treasury ETF like SGOV. This is because the interest from treasuries is exempt from state taxes, which can meaningfully boost your real yield. Whatever option you choose, the principle is the same. This money is liquid, safe, and not in the market. That's the whole point. The second thing you should do to prepare for a crash is to invest the vast majority of your investment funds, if not all of it, in low-cost, broad market ETFs. This is where many retail investors make their first mistake long before any crash actually happens. They put most of their money or a substantial part of it in individual stocks. Look, individual stocks are fine if you know what you're doing and you can afford to be wrong. But most investors are not sophisticated financial players. They invest in stocks they haven't really vetted. They haven't analyzed the company's figures or read the company's 10K. They haven't compared its result with that of its competitors. They invest in it because Seeking Alpha or Yahoo Finance or some YouTube finance guru says it's a strong buy. But when the market drops, overhyped, over-the-hill companies get hammered twice as hard, turning a 33% crash into a 60, 70, sometimes even a 90% crash. And some of these stocks never recover. During the dot-com bubble, the price of Pets.com reached a peak of $14 a share. But its business model was flawed, and just 9 months after its IPO, it declared bankruptcy. Shareholders eventually received 9 cents per share after its final liquidation. General Electric lost almost 80% of its peak value in 2000 in the wake of the dot-com bubble burst and did not fully recover until October 2025. And BlackBerry lost almost 90% of its value in the wake of the financial crisis of 2008 and the introduction of the iPhone and has never recovered. And there are many, many more examples. No matter how you slice it, and no matter what those YouTube finance gurus tell you, individual stocks are risky, and nobody knows what a stock will do. Anyone telling you otherwise is lying. ETFs lower your risk by offering instant diversification. They're baskets filled with hundreds, sometimes thousands of different stocks and not vulnerable to the trials and tribulations of any one stock. When the market drops 30%, your S&P 500 ETF also drops 30%. That sounds bad until you realize that if your portfolio consisted of 10 individual stocks, it might have dropped 70%. And several of the bull market darlings in your portfolio might not even survive the recession. The market always recovers. Individual companies don't. So invest mostly in broad market ETFs like an S&P 500 ETF or a total stock market ETF or a dividend ETF if you want to get some dividend income. I actually made a video about popular ETF portfolios. I'll leave a link in the description. And while you're checking it out, hit that like button and help the video reach other people who are also looking for ways to prepare for the next market crash. It will also help the channel grow so I can keep making more of these videos. Alright, back to this video. The third and last thing to do in preparation for a market crash is something that can turn a crash from a threat into an opportunity. It's money you set aside ready to deploy when the market drops. This money is part of your investment capital, not your emergency buffer. You're just not investing it in the stock market right now. It's dry powder, ammunition you keep at the ready for when the time comes. Where do you keep it? Same place where you keep your emergency buffer. A money market fund like Fidelity SPACs, a cash management account like Vanguard's Cash Plus account, or a short-term treasury ETF like SGOV. These funds will yield you somewhere around 3.5 to 4% while you wait. That's less than the 10% the market historically returns, but when the market drops, you'll have ammunition to pounce. There's also a psychological benefit to keeping some of your investment capital waiting in the wings. When you have dry powder ready to go, you stop being afraid of crashes. You almost start hoping for them because you know that when the market drops, you won't be the prey, you'll be the predator. Now, how much of your investment capital you should keep liquid is something perennially debated among investors, somewhere between 2 and 10%. Personally, I keep about 5% ready to go for when opportunity knocks, but you might want to keep more or less. That's up to you. Alright, so now that you're prepared for a market crash, let's look at what to do when the market actually crashes. This second step is the simplest of all, but for some it's the hardest to follow. When the market crashes, and like I said, it will at some point, but when it does, don't panic and don't sell. That's it. That's the whole step. Now let me show you why it's so important, because the math on this is brutal in both directions. Here's the stat that matters most. Over the last 20 years, 42% of the S&P 500's best single days happened during a bear market. Another 36% happened in the first 2 months of a new bull market before anyone had any idea the bull market had actually started. In other words, roughly 78% of the market's best days happen while the market is either crashing or in the early stages of a new bull market nobody has yet identified. Which means the people who panic sell, who say, I'll just wait until things calm down and then get back in, systematically miss the days that matter most. How much would that strategy cost you? Well, studies from JP Morgan, Fidelity and others all converge on roughly the same number. Missing just the 10 best days over a 20-year period cuts your total returns by about half. Half from missing 10 days out of 7,000. That's the true cost of panic selling. It's not the loss you see on paper during the crash. It's the recovery you don't participate in afterward because you weren't there. A lot of investors think, I'll sell now and just wait for the bottom and then I'll buy back in. It sounds smart, but it almost never works because nobody knows where the bottom actually is until months after it's already passed. The bottom is only obvious in hindsight. In the moment, every bottom looks like a brief pause before another leg down. Investors who try to time the bottom routinely sell near the lows and then buy back at higher levels, locking in losses and missing the recovery. Here too, the data is unambiguous. The median time for a market peak to a full recovery since 1929 is under 3 years. Even some of the worst crashes in history were fully recovered within 5 to 7 years for investors who simply held broad market funds, with the exception of the crash from 1929. The investors who lost the most money in 1987, 2000 and 2008 were not the ones who held through the crash, but those who sold during the crash. So when the market drops 30%, don't sell. When the news says, this time it's really different, don't sell. When your friends are panicking, don't sell. Hold the line. The market will recover. It always has. Now, step 3 is the one that separates the investors who simply survive crashes from the investors who get rich off of them. Here's a simple example. Let's say you have $100,000 invested in a total stock market ETF like the VTI. You also keep $5,000 in the iShares SGOV ETF, yielding you about 3.5%. Then the market drops 30%. Your $100,000 shrinks to $70,000, which is painful. But now you liquidate your SGOV shares and start buying more VTI at 70% of the price it was just a few days ago. Don't expend all your ammunition right away. Spread it out over a few months, because nobody knows where the bottom is. By buying in tranches, you guarantee you'll buy some shares near the bottom, even if you can't predict exactly where that is. Don't try to nail the exact bottom. The goal is to acquire shares at a substantial discount compared to where you think they'll be in 5 to 10 years. And historically, every crash has rewarded that approach. When the market eventually recovers and gets back to its previous high, on average within 3 years, that $5,000 will have become roughly $7,500. You've turned crash anxiety into a 50% gain on your dry powder, on top of recovering everything you temporarily lost. That's what the pros do. During a crash, they buy more. Warren Buffett's most famous line is, be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. It sounds like a slogan, but it's actually a precise description of what professional investors do during crashes. They don't sell. They buy aggressively because they know that a crash isn't a disaster, it's a sale. Think about it like this. If your favorite store suddenly marked everything down 30%, you wouldn't run away, you'd back up the truck. The stock market is the only store on earth where customers run away when prices drop. That's not rational behavior, that's emotional behavior. Don't be like that. Behave like the pros, like a buyer at a sale, not one who thinks it's the apocalypse. Don't stop dollar cost averaging and don't pick individual stocks. Keep putting the same amount into your broad market ETFs every month, just like before the crash. If you can miss more, buy more, because every dollar you put in at lower prices buys more shares, and those shares will eventually recover with the market. The magic of DCA investing is that it actually cuts your personal recovery time dramatically. Let's say the market drops 30% and takes 4 years to fully recover. If you stopped contributing during those 4 years, you recover in 4 years. But if you keep DCA investing the whole time, your average cost basis drops significantly because you bought a bunch of shares at much lower prices, meaning you're often back in the green long before the market itself completely recovers. That's what the pros do. They prepare in advance, they don't panic when it happens, and they deploy capital while everyone else is running for the exits. Now let me show you what these 3 steps actually look like with real money during a real crash. Imagine 3 investors going into the 2008 financial crisis, each with $100,000 invested in an S&P 500 index fund, each one earning a steady salary, each one with the same 3-year time horizon, and each one contributing $1,000 a month to their investment account. Investor A panics. When the market drops 30%, he sells everything and stops investing completely. The $70,000 he has left goes into a savings account earning 1% interest, where it sits untouched for almost 2 decades. He doesn't start investing again until it feels safe again, which means waiting until the market fully recovers back to its old highs in 2013. By 2025, between the savings account and the portfolio he rebuilt from scratch, he's sitting on roughly $546,000. Investor B holds. She doesn't sell, but she also stops her monthly contributions, too nervous to put new money in. Like Investor A, she doesn't start investing again until the market fully recovers in 2013. By 2025, her portfolio is worth roughly $1.1 million. Investor C follows the three-step plan. He doesn't sell and he never stops his regular $1,000 a month contribution. In fact, he adds an extra $1,000 a month on top for the next 12 months, buying more while everyone else is running scared. By 2025, his portfolio is worth roughly $1.6 million. Same starting capital, same portfolio, same market, and yet three completely different outcomes. The only thing that changed is what they did during the crash. That gap between Investor A and Investor C is over $1 million of lifetime wealth. It's the price of panic, and it's the reward for following a plan you decided on before the crash even arrived. So those are the three steps. Prepare, build your emergency fund, own broad market ETFs, keep 5% in dry powder. Don't panic, don't sell, hold through the entire crash, even when it feels like the world is ending, and in fact buy more. Keep your DCA running and deploy dry powder in tranches as the market drops. That's the whole plan, and it will determine how you will fare in the next market crash. Write this down in advance. Commit yourself to it. Do this and you'll come out of the next market crash richer than you went in. If you're looking for a simple ETF strategy that will weather a market crash better than individual stock portfolios, check out this video. I promise it will take a lot of decision stress away from you. Keep building long-term wealth smarter and faster, and I'll see you in the next one.